What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Couch Boxing. I'm your host, Reckless Rex Ruger. Watching my back, as always, El Flaco Explosivo, a.k.a. the Alexis Arguello puppet. We're back with another banger of an episode, taking it, again, Mr. International, taking it overseas to Australia with another great guest. But, of course, you come to expect that, man. Every episode's a banger. Legends, luminaries, world champions, and fighters on the rise coming here to chop it up with your boy, Reckless Rex, and tonight is no different. This is, of course, the undefeated, undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing podcast, bar none. You know it. I know it. The world knows it. At least they should, and hopefully they're getting hip to it. But we are out here grinding, running down the greatest guests we possibly can in the world of boxing, man. And, of course, as I said, tonight is another amazing episode. And, of course, that won't be edited out. You know where I stand on editing. If I confer with my guests, it's staying in. 100 years from now, we'll all look at this and we'll say, you know what? Rex was big on posterity. He left everything in, chronicled life just the way it was happening. That's what I want to be known for, folks. So, with that being said, man, we got another great episode. As I said, when don't we? My guest is here. We're going to get down to it and chop it up. Let's go. Can't wait for this one. This is a guy I really love. Mateo?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this, man. First of all, it's a pleasure to meet you, man.
Pleasure to meet you as well, mate.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, man. And first of all, I lost your camera there, though. There you go. There you go. First of all, congratulations, man. And I tell people, I just said in my little preamble beforehand, not many people fight the day before and come on a podcast the next day, man. So that's a good night at the office if you can come on. And obviously, you look pretty unscathed.
Yeah, I owe you one too.
Oh, that's all right. It's all right. So coming off of a fifth round TKO.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually I like to start at the beginning with these things, man. What age did you get a pair of boxing gloves on?
I was actually the first time I got a pair of boxing gloves when I was 6 years old. My dad was just teaching me in the backyard. And then actually even younger, I could have been 4 or 5. And then I started boxing at 9.
Okay. And so were you an avid watcher of the sport?
No, when I was younger, no. But when I started, yes. When I was 9 years old.
And so did you have any of those, you know how, you know how when we're kids, we all have those sports heroes, those guys we look up to. Did you have those in boxing?
Yes, I had a few. Manny Pacquiao was a big one when I was younger.
Yeah.
I used to watch his fights all the time when I was younger.
I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty stoked to get to meet him. He's going to be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame this year. I live about 15, 20 minutes from there, so I try to go up on Hall of Fame weekend. So he's going in this year. Well deserved too.
Mm-hmm.
Very well deserved.
One of the greatest.
I don't know, man. Do you think that it can be duplicated? Now, I've heard Inoue's name thrown around as a potential guy that could do this. But in your opinion, the 8 different weight classes, man, being a champion, that seems like a pretty insurmountable record right there. I think Manny might be safe there.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to come close to it now.
That's hard. That's hard. And especially to be able to carry your ability and your speed through up all those weights. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and the power too.
Yeah. So for people that'll see your name in the description, it's Cesar Mateo Tapia, but you can hear the Australian accent though. So you are Mexican and currently in Australia?
Yes, currently in Australia, but I train and reside out of St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay. And so what would you say is your first of all, I'm always big on nicknames. El Tijuanero, what's it mean?
El Tijuanero. It's like a saying, like the kid from Tijuana. It's like I was proud to be born there and proud to be.
Okay, that makes sense. And any relation anywhere along the bloodlines to the late great Johnny Tapia?
No, I get asked that a lot. No
connection. I probably figured you did, and I thought, you know what, he's probably not going to be the first time he's heard this question, but I got to ask anyway. I was a huge fan of Johnny Tapia.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites too.
And so, I want to ask you first and foremost, man. Your record now, you've ran your record 18-0-1. I'm always like interested in getting boxers take on the dreaded draw. Where do you stand on it? Is it a win or a loss, or like how does a boxer look at it? Because, you know, obviously we see a tie. Some sports can end in ties. Football can end in ties. Our American football, that is, hockey can end in ties or whatever. But like, what do you take away from it, man? Like when you come out of a fight and it ends in a draw.
Look, it's a bit more brutal. It's a bit more. It hits the heart a little bit more because we work so hard and we don't get a second chance straight away to fight again. So it just hits a little more being a draw because you work so hard. It's kind of weird feelings, weird emotions because it's no win, but it's not a loss either.
Right.
And your body's really hurting the next day. So you're kind of like, oh, what was that for? You know?
Right. It's almost like you like a tangible result. You know what I mean? Like something that's a little more definitive than a draw, you know?
Yes.
And as you say, when you get those draws, a lot of times you don't get the opportunity to run them back. Now, forgive me for not having it in front of me, but it was I guess I do have the scores here. A controversial draw though, because two judges did have it a draw, but a judge did have it for you.
Yes, I actually scored the fight myself, and I'm a very non-biased person. Like I'll let you know if I lost, and I could see why the judges scored it in favor of me. The cleaner shots were from my end. The more definitive blows were from my end. Like the second knockdown, he got me with a good little right hook. But I wasn't too bothered by it. It was the head clash that really bothered me just beforehand.
Yeah.
And it cut my eye open, and I was on the floor when he dropped me, and I wasn't worried about the shot. It was my eye that was really hurting, and I was like,
yeah.
New to me. So I just had to go through that, but I can see why the judges scored it a draw, but I can also see why a lot of people thought I lost, and I can also see why. Yeah, I look at it a couple of different ways.
And so, you know, your record, as I said, 18-0-1, 11 knockouts. You know, you certainly more of your wins have come percentage-wise by way of the knockout, you know, than going to the cards or whatever. And I suppose, and I've heard other fighters say this, I suppose it's not a game plan to go in there with. It can be a slippery slope and dangerous to go in there looking for a knockout. But, like, what is your mindset? Because we do still see, unfortunately, I cover the sport, I'm passionate about it, but we do still see a lot of shitty scorecards turned in, man. Is it ever in the back of your mind, like, God damn it, I've left this in the hands of the judges, man? I mean, you know, is there a point in time in the fight, like, where you will step on the gas and go for a knockout and have that on your mind?
Yes, it's always in my mind. It's always good to take it away from the judges. I mean, that's the perfect ending. That's the perfect story.
Yeah.
That's the perfect outcome, because then you don't put your life into anyone else's hands.
Yeah.
That's ideally what you look for, because the judging these days is everyone has their opinion and everyone can get away with what their opinion is. So yeah.
Now, you being age 26 right now, man, I discussed this with a couple of guests, man. It seems like a man's prime like used to be equated to his age. You know what I mean? Being young, being youthful. But then I've had a lot of boxers on here recently who are still competing well into their 30s, in their late 30s or whatever. You know, I feel like maybe physically you're more peak when you're younger, but I feel like as you get older, man, you know, putting it all together up here also makes you very dangerous. Do you feel like right now 26 is the prime of your career? Do you feel like you're entering the prime? You're in the midst of your prime?
I don't even think I'm in my prime yet.
Yeah.
To be honest, I feel like I'm still a baby in this sport.
Yeah.
So if that puts it into perspective, I still got a long way to go. I do feel mentally stronger after my last fight with Andrew Saavedra.
Yeah.
Because what I had to go through to get into that fight was a lot for us. The two hurricanes in Florida, there was no sparring going around because everyone was getting prepared for the hurricane. So, which is fine. It's not an excuse because I'm very proud of how I handled myself and how I performed. And then what I had to go through on the night too. So I feel like I'm a different fighter after that fight. Mentally.
Let me ask you about some topical things going on in the sport right now. This is, you know, and then we'll come back to your career or whatever. This is obviously all subjective stuff, just current stuff that's kind of popping off in the boxing world. A big hot topic was obviously the Tank Davis Lamont Roach fight. Where did you stand on that? How did you score it? How did you think that it went?
I actually enjoyed the fight. It was actually a really good fight, but to be honest, it was a little bit too late for me, and
Yeah.
I wasn't paying too much. I knew it was a close fight. It could have gone either way, but to be honest, I like the way that Roach approached that fight. Davis being the superstar he is, and
Yeah.
Roach approached that like you're not a superstar.
Right.
You're just another guy in front of me.
Yeah.
He set the tone. He hurt Davis a few times and rattled him, and yeah. But to be honest, I was falling asleep because it's very late in Florida when you watch those fights.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I've even had people compare it to because they have a history together. You know what I mean? Like almost like a sparring session. You know what I mean? Like it seemed like maybe both guys were holding back a little bit because of their previous history. I don't know if that'll be the case in a rematch. Obviously, I think both guys will want to be a little more definitive. But where did you stand on Davis taking the controversial knee in round 9? You know, obviously, if you're a fighter in the opposite corner, you're looking at that and thinking a knockdown.
100%, and I think it should have been a knockdown. There's stuff that happens in the fight where you just have to fight through it. Like I've seen guys dislocate their shoulders and not go down. Like,
right.
And they keep fighting on until they get back to the corner. So if you look at it in that way, I think it should have been counted as a knockdown.
Now, where do you stand on the mental side of boxing? I'm always intrigued by this part. Physically, I guess you could be born certainly with great physical attributes, but a lot of the physical stuff in boxing can be taught. Someone could show you how to throw a proper jab. Someone could show you how footwork goes. But the mental side, I think most people will go to great lengths to avoid a confrontation. I think it's very unnatural to climb between the ropes and have a confrontation and a fight with another person. There's obviously fear and anxiety in there, but harnessing that and being able to still perform. How did you know that you had the mental toughness to do it? Like when does that part develop for you?
I guess it just grows over time. We're just look. I think it just comes. Some people are born with it. Some people are not. I wouldn't say you're born with it, but you definitely, when you're younger, you get put through those situations, and you just know you can handle them. And I know that, so I've always known I've always been good to handle that, like pressure, and I don't really care what people say. I just love to do what I do.
Yeah. Now, what's the aspirations like for 2025? If correct me if I'm wrong, but this was your first fight of 2025?
Yeah.
How busy would you like to be in 2025, ideally, if you have your way?
I'd like to get another 3 fights in.
Okay.
I want to year off early, so just flip the page from last year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had got a good win against a strong opponent, and he's never been stopped. So to stop him was good.
And what's the game plan as far as like nowadays? I'm 52 years old, so I remember back in the day, boxers had to have a pretty good resume and a pretty good amount of wins under their belt, 20 or more to get title shots. Now we're seeing guys stepping into the title picture with, we just saw Keyshawn Davis 13, 14 fights in, get the WBO lightweight belt. We saw Lomachenko fighting for a title in like his 3rd fight, something crazy like that. So you being 18-0, where do you feel like timeline-wise, you see yourself in a world title fight? Is it realistic to think 2025? More realistic to think 2026?
Probably 2026.
Yeah.
Or 2020 if it comes along, like an opportunity comes along. I'm happy to grab it with both hands as long as we get paid what we're deserved. And
yeah,
add turkeys in the sport too, because he's paying fighters the way they should be.
Yeah. Now, do you like the involvement of Saudi Arabia and Turkey in boxing now? Because, I love it. And we obviously saw that great card in February where he really stacked it. And aside from a couple of guys having to pull out late and be replaced, which those fights still ended up great, it was everything boxing fans want to see. A low pay-per-view price, world title fights, even matchups, a stacked card. In the past, sometimes you get 2 or 3 okay undercard fights and then a great main event. Turkey Al-Sheikh seems to want to be able to, really give us great cards all the time. Then there are other people I've been reading on social media that are very protective of the sport and say, do we really want Saudi taking over our boxing? People are protective of it, obviously. But where do you stand on it? I think he's doing great things.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I think the sport needs a change and needs a shake up. It's like the golf. It's like
right.
Golf. The sport needs a shake up.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's bringing a lot of things to light that people don't want to see, that, you know, people don't like bringing to light. So, and this new organization with Dana White and the WWE is a pretty interesting organization. And
Yeah.
I feel like one day, you know, we can be a part of that too.
And from a fighting style, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen you fighting, in preparation for my notes here and stuff to talk to you about, you know what I mean? And having watched a bunch of your fights or whatever, what would you say your fighting style is? Like, i.e., you hear guys come on here, who are technical boxers. Like we see what a guy like Shakur Stevenson does, you know what I mean? Not big on the knockouts, but fights a very tactical fight or whatever. You seem to be like a guy, boxer, puncher, kind of able to do both. As I said, you got, more than half of your fights are knockouts, but what style do you think? Obviously, people see, you talk about the Mexican background, people think about the Mexican style of fighting, being in a phone booth, slugging it out. Is that a fair representation?
Yes, I think so. I think I'm a boxer puncher, but I also have a little Mexican style to it. And if I need to go technical too, that's a thing I can do too. I can sort of do it all, I guess.
What would you say to people? I mean, what would you say to people? Because obviously a lot of times, man, like we see like the technical boxer, kind of get their name kind of ran through the mud a little bit because the fights might not be as fan friendly, as exciting. You know what I mean? Do you appreciate when you sit down? I know you just mentioned about Tank and Lamont being a little bit of a snooze fest. Do you appreciate those kind of fighters who do it on a high level like that?
100%.
Yeah.
They're like the less damage, and they're the fighters that, get to an old age and don't have problems. Are the technical fighters. So
yeah,
you have to take pages out of their book. And I do really like the way they fight and the way they look at the sport.
And the way guys right now are always bandy about who the face of the sport is. A lot of guys always take to Twitter. They take to social media. There's always a lot of banter. Sometimes we see the fights get made. Sometimes we don't. Hopefully Turki Al-Sheikh is going to change that. You know what I mean? First of all, where do you stand on that? You know what I mean? Like trash talk in general. Are you big on it?
No. I don't
seem like you would be. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm very in my own shows. If someone wants to disrespect me, you can disrespect me all you want. I don't need to waste my energy on you. Or
right.
I'll just show you in the ring when I get in there, and I think that's what fans like to see. Fans are not liking trash talk anymore. I don't know. It's not my thing.
How about as I said, we get a lot of guys all saying that they're the face of boxing, which I don't know, like when that entered the vernacular, but it seems to be a coveted title that guys want to be recognized at. When you look at the sport right now, is there definitively somebody who's the face of boxing right now?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a few big figures in the sport, and I think they all should be happy where they are, and they should greedy and say, I'm the face of boxing. That's just, there's a lot of great fighters, and you can't compare yourself to other fighters. Everyone's great in their own right. Especially when they get
right. And now you're currently competing at middleweight. Do you see yourself eventually exploring other weight classes? And what is your ceiling for how high you could go in weight?
Maybe in the future, in a couple of years, we'll see if offers come in the super middleweight. I've fought at super middleweight before. Fought at middleweight early in my career. I fought at super welterweight or junior middleweight, whatever you call it. If offers come, I swear that's where the sport's going. It's not about titles anymore. It's more about how much money you can make, and
it really is. Yeah, it really is.
That's the way the sport's going, I think. Like the titles are getting less. What's the word?
Prestigious.
Yes, like it's not quite as
prestigious. And it sounds like Turki Al-Sheikh, that's a point of contention with him as well, alluding to the various alphabet organizations and so many guys being recognized, as a champion. You get 4 or 5 guys all walking around at a weight, all claiming that they're a world champion, and they're not wrong.
Like belts are cool and all that, but at the end of the day, they collect dust.
Right. Good point. Right.
Yeah. They don't mean anything. But it's just a label that, they like to create. And I just think the way the world's going, it's more about the topic is how much money they made.
Right.
You're
not wrong.
It's the truth.
Yeah. And now, because we're talking about people making money off the sport, and this is a polarizing question. Some old school guys are obviously, like I said, protective of the sport. Some people are a little, like the fact that it brings more eyes to the sport. But where do you stand on these Jake Paul type events?
Look, I think that you can look at it in both ways. I think they're good for the sport. They bring a lot of eyes to the sport. That's definitely
Granted.
I think Jake Paul's done a good. I'm not necessarily a fan of his stuff, but I think he's done really good for the sport too. If you look at it in both ways, like he brings a lot of eyes, he gives fighters a lot of opportunities, and I have to take my hat off to him in that way also. And fair play to him. He makes a lot of money off his fights.
Is he somebody that you look at now and can say, obviously he's trying to live the lifestyle and training as a boxer? Do you look at him and say, as a boxer yourself, there's somebody that I recognize as another boxer, or is he still kind of lumped in that, a boxer in the making or a showman? Like, what do you perceive him to be? I mean, do you give him credit for being a full-fledged boxer?
I wouldn't. I'd say he's trying to be a boxer. I think I give him credit because he does train hard. He does sacrifice. I've seen somewhat celebrities or other people come into the sport, not take it seriously, and not sacrifice, and just basically not respect the boxers. And Jake Paul's done the opposite. Jake Paul does train hard, does put himself in harm's way. And yeah, you got to respect him for that too.
And so you, speaking from a fan standpoint, obviously everybody that competes in the sport is a potential competitor. Could be a potential opponent somewhere down the road. But as a fan, are there guys right now currently doing it that that when they're fighting, you'll tune in? People that you enjoy watching.
Trying to think of fighters off the top of my head. Just all the big fights I tune into, like UFC. All the heavyweights I like watching. Joseph Parker, Tyson Fury, I used to like watching. Just every fight that's big, I really like tuning in and watching. I don't really watch.
And now we're saying used to about Tyson Fury. Do we believe he's actually going to stay retired? And I want to get your opinion on that, because obviously we just talked about you having a draw. Does it sit well with the boxer, man, to go out? I know he's made a lot of money and he's got a beautiful family and everything, but going out, a guy is proud of his fighting heritage as Tyson Fury, to ride off into the sunset after back-to-back losses. Do you think we've seen the last of him?
I think so. I don't know. I can't say, to be honest. You never know with Tyson Fury. Could come back and make another 100 million. You just don't know.
Right. That's true. Yeah, I know. And so I didn't have this information in front of me, but I wanted to look it up on my phone and kind of get your assessment, because you are competing at middleweight. Just your assessment on some of the current belt holders there. Where do you stand on Janibek?
I've done a few rounds with him.
Okay.
I think he's a great fighter. He's a great, idol or competitor of the sport. He's a great champion for the sport. The way he holds himself, the way he fights, it's a very, good thing to see. Janibek's a really good fighter. I've done a lot of rounds with him, and I know I can compete at that level.
How about Carlos Adames? He's got the WBC piece of the belt, and we just saw him. I think we saw him on that last Saudi card, didn't we?
He fought. I think Shiraz is a great fighter too. He's a great person for the sport too. The way he talks, the way he holds himself. I've met Hamza too. I've done a few rounds with him as well. I think he's a great person for the sport, and Adames is an animal too.
And how about the last guy? I know he's getting up there in age. I know people, he's obviously like a gatekeeper at middleweight, but still holding a belt. Erslan De Lara.
Yeah, he's a great champion too.
Amazing.
He's the same. He's a great person for the sport. He's a great person to look up to, and to be his age and still competing is something very unique.
I like what you said earlier about feeling like you're a baby in the sport, man. Like, what is one of those things right now, like a part of your game right now, that you really feel like, going forward? I don't want to say like a weakness or a hole in your game, but something that like you're thinking of that you want to tighten up or make better. You know what I mean? What's a component of your game that you'd like to sharpen?
Everything.
That's you're always learning.
Always, there's always something we're learning. There's always something we can get better. I think that's what makes this sport so beautiful, is you can be the best fighter, you can have all the tools, you can be most skillful, but you're always learning something new. You kind
of have to look at it that way, right? I mean, you have to. You can't ever get to the point where you think you got it all figured out. That's dangerous.
Yeah. I think that's when problems start happening. You got to be teachable.
Yeah. And so talk to me a little bit about, like, give a shout out and a little bit of shine, to the team you have around you. You know what I mean? Obviously, a big part of succeeding is having a great team. So shout out who's your trainer?
Rick Coronigan.
Okay.
He's a St. Pete local. He's been around the sport for a long time. And Jesse Thompson, who's he's my assistant coach, second-hand coach. He's works for Rival. I think he's Rival in the States. Rival Boxing. And then my strength and conditioner is Serjon. He's a Serbian. His name's Serjon. He's a Serbian in St. Petersburg, Florida, and he's gotten me well prepared for my last 3 fights. And shout out to them.
And now you are signed with a promotional company. Correct me if I'm wrong. No Limit Boxing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And you've also have a good working relationship, a friendship with the Zoos, correct?
Yes, me and the Zoos are very good friends. We keep in touch.
And so do you feel like it's more of a, is it friendship and business? Do you feel like you've learned a lot from Tim?
It's both, yeah.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot from each other, and there's a genuine friendship there too. So.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I know, as I said, you being 26 years old, you're just really getting your career going or whatever. But if you could look ahead and think about when your in-ring career is over, do you feel like boxing will always be a part of your life? I.e., you will maybe get into promoting yourself or training. Do you feel like you'll always have an involvement in boxing?
100%, because it's given me so much in this life, and I'm in a position where fighters never get to. And so I'm very grateful to be where I'm at. I'm in a position where, financially fighters will never see in their lifetime.
Yeah.
I bought my first property. I never thought I'd buy a property in my life here in Australia.
Yeah.
Boxing's been able to give me that. And just to have that under my belt is something I can always be proud of. And I just look forward to just keep growing. That's all I can do.
What was the one takeaway that you had in your fight the other day, your 5th round TKO? Is there something in that fight that you look at it now and say, "Wow, I did this particularly well," or I feel like I did something better than I did the previous fight"?
I was more relaxed.
Yeah.
Still in the zone, but I was more relaxed. Anything that come my way, I felt like I was ready for. Like, there's no way you're going to hurt me or get me out of there. I just felt like a different human in that fight. Not like I'm better than someone, but I felt like I just felt different in myself.
When you're in camp for a fight, like, what's the worst part of camp for you? Is there a component of it that you don't like? Obviously, there's a lot of sacrificing of things, a lot of discipline. You're really knuckling down, like, with a fight on the horizon. Is there a component of it that you don't like?
I think I'm talking for every boxer here. Camp's the whole thing's not enjoyable.
Right. I guess it shouldn't be, right?
No, it's something you have to learn to become friends with, I guess. You have to learn to enjoy it. You have to learn to, I guess that's discipline. You have to do stuff you don't really like doing. But when you do it, you look at the greater picture and you know what doors can open and what things you can achieve.
Is it difficult making weight? I.e., do you walk around like pretty close to your fighting weight?
I don't walk around too close, but it's not difficult to make weight.
No.
15 pounds heavier all the time.
Yeah.
15 in that range. And then, obviously on fight week, I'm a little bit lower, just trying to cut weight, but usually around 20 pounds.
And again, like, going back to Tank for a minute, because he's the first person that comes to mind, like, when I think of these, but like when you see these weight clauses put on fighters, are you a fan of that?
Nah, not really. To
No.
be honest, I think you should be fighting guys that are in your weight division, or don't boil people down, I guess.
Yeah.
Look at it. Boxing is a business too, so some people are just good at that, and whoever started that has made a trend about it.
How do you rectify it? Do you think that, like, like, where do you stand on like the same day weigh-in as opposed to 24 or 48 hours before like a fight? I think they're usually 24 hours before a fight, but like, where do you stand on like what I mean? How should the weigh-in process go?
It should be just like a day before. It's fine.
Yeah.
I know it's your brain is the last thing to get hydrated at the end of the day, so you can be bigger in there, but you won't be able to take the same shots. So that's why you see a lot of people that cut a lot of weight. They can't take the same shots. So I still think the weigh-in the day before is fine. You just have to do it, safely and correctly.
And what's the one food that is the hardest to deny yourself when you're in camp? Is there a specific dish? And what's the thing that you got to have like immediately after the fight that maybe you've deprived yourself of?
No, I don't really look forward to anything. I do like a little cheat meal when I'm not fighting, but I don't. When I'm in camp, I eat really good, and that's how I live my lifestyle anyway.
What's a good cheat meal for you? A cheat meal would be what?
I had McDonald's after the fight.
There you go. That's a cheat meal.
But that's something I don't look forward to.
Right.
It's just like a little ritual we have after the fight. Like right now, forward to it. Like it's not.
Right.
I just look like eating a good meal, and yeah.
Now, we talked a little bit, offline, and I mentioned, how I saw your interview and you were rocking the Alice in Chains shirt. If you had to fight the best 3 minutes of your life, or you were in the ring sparring even, you needed to put in the best 3 minutes of your life, what would be the song going on in your mind? Is there one? Or an artist?
An Alice in Chains song, or just anything?
No, just in general. Any song. Yeah.
No, I can't give you. I listen to a lot of artists. I listen to a lot of crazy bands. I can't tell you that. That'd be
What's a crazy band that someone would consider, or that you would lump into as a crazy band?
Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites, as I said. Sublime's nice, but you can't really put that to a fighting.
No.
I've been listening to a lot of Mexican music, like Peso Pluma, Natal Cano, Luis, I forgot his name. Just like stuff like that. But I don't know.
Are you still a Stone Temple? Are you still a Stone Temple Pilots fan? Despite the fact that their original lead singer Scott Weiland, unfortunately, is no longer with us. Does that change it for you?
Yeah, a little bit, to be honest.
It does. Yeah.
I think they played a show here in Sydney not too long ago, and I wasn't there, but I saw a photo and a video, and he sounded good, but it's just still not the same. I think one of the only bands that really still made it was AC/DC when Bon Scott passed away.
Yeah. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to take another guy and plug him in, especially like when you're the front man, because I think not only is your voice synonymous with the music, you know what I mean, but you are kind of like we talked about the face of boxing. You are kind of the face of the band.
Yeah, you're the image of the band. That's what people. And I think AC/DC is one of the bands that did that well. Just Stone Temple Pilots is in a different era, and I don't know, it just doesn't feel the same to me. But I do appreciate.
And of course, AC/DC, an export of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so do you already have a target date on like when your next fight is? Like how far apart do you like the fights like spread out? I mean, I know literally you're right on the heels of having one just finished, but how soon do you think about like getting the next one in? Because obviously we see guys at the top level, those guys up there are fighting once, twice a year.
Yeah, maybe June, July. I would like to fight June. I would like to keep the ball rolling and just stay active. I think
Now
that's
it looks like WBA shot this idea down. Someone told me in my interview the other day, but a couple weeks ago they were flirting with the idea of returning to 15 rounders for unification bouts, for championship bouts. Maybe trialing it. When titles are on the line. Do you like the idea of 15 round fights?
no,
No, not necessary.
no. It's like, is 12 rounds enough? Like we cop
It is.
enough damage, and yeah, another 3 rounds you'll see a lot more deaths, a lot more problems. Yeah, I don't think it's a healthy thing for the sport. I think 12 rounds is enough.
Yeah. Have you yourself thought of a definitive, or is it just a play by ear thing? Have you thought of a definitive stop date for your boxing career, like maybe like a certain age or a certain amount of fights, or have you not really kind of planned it out to that extent?
We have maybe just see. It all depends how my body pulls up. 33, 34 would be ideal to walk away. But of course, if there's an opportunity that I can't turn down when I'm 33, 34, that's life-changing money, or there's something that's very life-changing, I'll take it. But I don't think I'll be fighting for not too long after that. It's, if I had a kid, I'd tell him not to box either. It's a very, very it's a very brutal sport. It's a very taxing sport, not only in the ring, but the people you have to deal with outside the ring is, it's not nice.
You're referring, of course, obviously to the business side, the political side of it. I imagine, the things along those lines. And so, like, with that being said, obviously there's things in boxing that need to be tweaked. I alluded to the bad scoring and seeing bad scorecards sometimes. Are there any other things that you look at in the sport as issues, because it is your sport, like where you look at it and say, boxing's got to do better with this?
I think I was reading something the other day. They should have open scoring again.
Okay, open scoring. You mean what? Like at the end of every round, they tell you who won?
Yeah, or just they show you what the judges have scored.
Okay.
So they can't hide rounds, and because people's attention spans these days are very short.
Yeah, so you're telling me.
If you look at it I think that's a very good thing, of something that they should look into. It's just a bit of open scoring, and when they see a round, like there's a blatant round that could be his, and
right.
I don't know.
Almost kind of similar to when we see like the gymnasts in the Olympics, and at the end, like they hold up something. You know what I mean? Like what they scored it.
I think the last fight, one of my favorite fighters was Edwin Valera.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
And one of his last fights with Antonio DeMarco he fought in Mexico. But I remember that fight was open scoring, and it was nice to watch. Like it was,
yeah. I find it even interesting. I've watched some old boxing movies and seen some old boxing men, like where the referee used to do the scoring.
I haven't seen that.
I'm pretty sure. No. I'm pretty sure that like way back in the day, I think like the referee used to maybe have a hand in it or have an opinion on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean, people in the comment section can correct me if I'm wrong or whatever. But so, are there any fights from a boxing fan standpoint that you've enjoyed so far in 2025, or maybe fights that are going to happen that are on the calendar that you're looking forward to?
I like the Benavidez fight recently. I think he really did well.
Yeah.
Of course, the Tank Davis fight. What's another fight that's happened?
I'm really looking forward to the all British war between Chris Eubank and Conor Benn. Oh
yes, that's a fight I would love to try it in the future. Eubank or Conor Benn. These are fights that are on my radar one day. And
those two. Apparently those two are fighting April 26th.
Yeah, I think Eubank has a good chance. I think he wins, to be honest. I don't really like the way Conor Benn carries himself, and if you get caught with something, like, he's a great fighter, don't get me wrong. He's a fighter at heart, and I like that. But if you get caught with something, and it's not nice. It's not nice to know that people are cheating and blaming it on them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch. Thanks. Yeah.
Nice.
And now, interesting you bring up David Benavidez because it looks like they're trying to make the fight with him in Bivol. But then again, Turki Al-Sheikh would like to see Better Biev in Bivol Part 3 again. First of all, where do you stand on Better Biev Bivol 3? Do we need to see it again?
I don't know. Like the fight will probably be the same. The fight
Yeah,
will probably be the same. And then we're gonna see a 4. Like it'll just keep going on.
right.
Uh, they're both so good, and until we're gonna keep seeing the fight until one gets really old, and I
Right,
think
right.
better is almost there. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, you can make a case for Better Biev already being in boxing years pretty old.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see Benavidez and Bivol. That's a great fight, and why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
And you think Benavidez made the right move? Because obviously he was down there at 168 for a while, chasing a Canelo fight that just didn't manifest. His mindset, I kind of agreed with, where like, look, I got to move on with my career. You know what I mean? He went up to 175. He's, as you said, he's enjoyed some success. He beat Vodzik up there. He just beat David Morrell. Is that a good move for him? You know what I mean? To not stay camped out and try to force a Canelo fight.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
he should give my stablemate a chance. Morrell fought him. His name's Hot Rod Radovic. Morrell fought him before Benavidez, so he's my stablemate.
Yes, I know. I've actually had conversations with him on Facebook Messenger, man. He's somebody that, yeah, you're right. He did fight Benavidez and gave him a hell of a fight.
He fought Morrell, but
Morrell. Yes,
I think he gives Benavidez trouble, and
yeah,
that fight, it's I think he should give him that should be a fight that should happen in the light.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. I like that guy. I'm high on him. Yeah, I mean, he turned in a great performance, and I think he really showed out that night because kind of goes without saying that I feel like that was one of those fights where he was lined up to be a David Morrell victim. You know what I mean? Like a notch on his resume. And I like when they flip the script like that. Yes, he still didn't get the decision, but he gave a good enough account of himself where, you know what I mean, people can't deny him going forward.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he knows he's meant to be at that level. That's his. I think he fought better, Beav, but then this fight was just like cemented in his head that he's meant to be.
Yeah,
he's a different fighter too after that fight.
And I know that you said like title picture seems more likely in 2026. But do you feel like though, man, physically and mentally, man, that you're ready to be on that stage right now, or do you feel like you need X amount of fights in order to consider yourself there?
It's just like life in general that you never know when you're ready. If the opportunity comes, you have to take it, and that's how you find out if you're ready or not. So if it comes, it comes. If it comes next year, it's going to come. It's not about it's just like life in general. You don't know when you're actually ready. You just have to take it with both hands and go along with the ride.
Is there a specific belt or alphabet organization that you feel like you would be gunning for? Like, I mean, forgive me for not having it in front of me, but I don't know. Like, do any of the alphabet organizations have you currently ranked?
I think it's the IBF and the WBO I'm ranked in.
Okay.
I think Janabek holds those belts, but I know he's looking for a big fight too. I know he's looking for a big fight to cash out on. So who knows if he stays around or he vacates and goes up. I don't know. Like, you don't know with boxing these days. So
I know. There is so much. There is so much. There is so much up in the air, and you make a good point. There is a business side to it too. You know what I mean? And you do want to make money, obviously, and you find a way to make money and have career success. I imagine it's really a dichotomy of trying to achieve both.
Yeah, and fair play to them. If I was in their shoes, I'd do the same thing.
Yeah.
You got to look after your family. You got to look after what money you make, and at the end of the day, that's what people remember these days.
Now, when you're in the ring, having watched your fights, a bunch of things come to mind that I think you do well. Is there one thing that you would consider like this is my primary weapon, man? Like this is the thing that I'm the most happy about that I have in my arsenal?
The most unique thing will be my surprise factor. Like I can just change.
Yeah.
they don't know when it's coming. So you can say that.
And when you say change, like what exactly do you mean for boxing fans that might not know that? You know what I mean? Like you have like a switch that goes on and I mean, condense that down a little bit.
A switch in pace, a switch in tempo, a switch in
Okay.
mind, a switch in speed, a switch in anything, but you always see something different with me.
Yeah.
It's what's the word? Forgot the word. Sorry, my bad.
No, that's all right. That's all right. So I pose this question to a lot of fighters on here, and a lot of them are giving me the same answer that if there's a boxer currently doing it right now that could pull this off, it would be Bud Crawford. But what do you think about his chances moving all the way up to 168 and fighting a guy like Canelo?
He can do it, but it's going to be tough. I think it'll be too much.
Yeah.
I think just depends how long they drag this out for. Canelo, he can get old too, and I know he's not on his way out, but you can tell by his last few performances he doesn't really want the hardest fights available.
Right.
But fair play to him, but we'll just see how long they drag it out. But I think Canelo beats him.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So, too much weight.
It is a lot. It's a big task. And I've had his trainer Bomac on. You know, I'm a huge Bud fan. I know that he has the skill set to be able to do it. And I agree with boxers who say if there's a guy out there doing it right now that could pull this off, he would be one of those guys in the conversation. Certainly. I mean, he's certainly got a lot of amazing attributes and physical tools.
Yeah, and just skills in general. I think he can do it too. It'll be an interesting fight, but my look on it is I think Canelo should beat him comfortably.
Is it, I probably know the answer to this already, but for boxing fans who might be wondering, is it just a matter of because this is a weight that Canelo has campaigned at for a while and he's comfortable, and I mean, he's been living at this weight for a while. Does that make it more difficult too, because Bud's doing all the changing?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It's a big jump. Your body's got to get used to it, and I don't think he's naturally that big. Canelo, naturally a super middleweight. He's a bigger boy.
Yeah.
He's smaller, but I don't know. I think Terence Crawford will find that really tough. But fair play to him. You got to take your hat off and just appreciate what he's done and what he's going to do if he goes up to 168.
Well, I asked Bomac the other day, man, like what he would say to people, who would say they were a little underwhelmed. He made that pit stop at 154 and he fought Madrimov, and he didn't look, I mean, he won the fight or whatever, but he didn't look like, the very dominating Bud Crawford that we've seen him in the past.
Yeah, I just think a lot of pressure, a lot could have been riding on that. You don't know why, but he might surprise us at 168. You never know.
Well, he surprised the hell out of me in that Spence fight in the fact that he made it look a lot easier than people thought it would be. I mean, he not only won, but he really dominated and made Spence, I mean, really dispensed of him fairly easily.
Yeah. That was a great fight too.
That was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I predicted that he would win, but I didn't think it'd be that comfortable and that easy, and he'd make such light work of a guy like Spence. I mean,
yeah.
That's pretty crazy. And so I always call this the Mayweather effect, and a lot of boxers have agreed with me on here. Do you feel like for a while there we didn't see great fights being made because guys were protective of their O? It's almost like you couldn't be discussed in the conversation of all-time greats unless you remained undefeated, which I know every fighter wants to be or whatever, man, but like obviously you've got a draw on your record. And you're not like completely considering your career fucking derailed because of that. You know what I mean? Do you think do you think that's a fair assessment that a lot of guys for a while kind of equated greatness with being undefeated?
I think so, and it's the wrong way to look at it. Like if you look at the greats in the back in the day, George Foreman, he had losses back 20 years later and won a world title. Bernard Hopkins, you got to look at all these legends. So as long as you keep working towards that goal, keep working hard, keep giving great fights to the people, you'll always be a topic of discussion in the sport.
Yeah, and even Muhammad Ali had losses. I mean, he's considered one of the greatest of all time. I mean,
so many great fighters with losses. It's just sad the way the sport went for a little bit. If you went undefeated, nobody really cared. Like I don't care if I have a loss. I don't care.
Right.
It would hurt inside.
Sure.
You look at it in another light. Like boxers lose, you win, you lose, you get up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a healthy way to look at it, and probably like a safe way to look at it. You know what I mean? Because if you get in there and you're riding your own high horse a little bit too much, I feel like that could be dangerous too.
You always gotta. I'm a very down to earth person, so you always got to keep your 2 feet on the ground and not look ahead of anyone.
Is
And
there
not
somebody? Is there somebody on your resume who you feel like has given you the toughest fight up to this point?
just Saavedra.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty. Yeah, you guys saw that was a tough fight.
Very,
Not
very.
skill wise, it was just more tough internally, and he's physical and he was pushing me around, and that was tough. I mean, tough. People think that's really tough, but it was tough.
Is there a GOAT in the sport, an all-time great? I know I just brought Muhammad Ali's name. You always hear the kids, always debating Michael Jordan or LeBron, or in this sport or that sport, who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Is there an all-time great in your mind? And I know it's a subjective question, obviously. Does boxing have? Who's your boxing GOAT?
There's many. If you get those areas, Sugar Ray Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Ray Leonard, just they're all GOATs in my opinion.
Yeah. So your plans going forward for the rest of the year, you mentioned that you'd like to get a fight in June. But are there talks yet, or is it too early? Any potential opponents, or is that still to be determined?
Still to be determined. It's too fresh off the fight. I don't know yet. I want to fight. I know No Limit have a show in Australia June 11th, so I want to push for that as much as I can. We'll just see what happens. Opponents wise, I could get a big name here in Australia or another international opponent. I just don't know.
Right. You obviously you just had a fight in Australia. Is fighting here in the States, what's it comparable to? Because obviously, we always think as boxing fans that if something is popping off in Vegas, or we just saw, Tank and Lamont Roach in New York City at the Barclays Center, we're going to see that big card in the middle of Times Square that Turki Al-Sheikh is going to put on, man. Where's the Mecca? A big place for you to fight where you feel like, wow, I've arrived, I've made it, I'm in a big fight now.
Madison Square Garden will be ideal. It could be where you fight Las Vegas, you fight in MGM Grand, you fight in T-Mobile Arena. They're all places that
huge
love to fight. But at the end of the day, it's if the energy's there, it all feels the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
Rings, everything's the same. So when you fight in Sydney, or when I fight in Australia, the energy is insane in there, and that's the same energy you'll get everywhere else.
So the boxing fans in Australia are great.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I would imagine that they would. And now, correct me if I'm wrong for not knowing my boxing history of guys that have come out of Australia, man. But is it a long list? Is it a short list? What's the boxing history like? Obviously, we know the Zoos.
Costa Zoo. I can name Lionel Rose.
Jeff
Fennick, Anthony Mundine, Danny Green. Sorry if I'm Robbie.
No, that's all right. No.
Robbie Peden, he fought Barrera.
Yep. I guess there's a lot that sometimes fall under the radar that you don't even think about. You know what I mean? Because I think when people think Australian boxers, certainly their mind goes right to the Zoos and obviously the Great Costa Zoo. You know what I mean? But that's an easy one to remember.
Danny Green was a big idol here, a big person that everyone looked up to, and he's still a great person. He was a great champion.
Yeah, I had Jeff Fennick on a couple of weeks ago too. He's amazing.
Yeah, Anthony Mundine, Jeff Fennick too. He was a great champion.
And so it's very rare, obviously, man. If I'm going to have somebody on the podcast and they're coming off a fight, I usually get the rap where, couple weeks, let me heal up. This is not the case with you. You were on here probably just a mere day and a half later or whatever. So, so would you say that, your 5th round TKO the other day, man, what were the takeaways, man? When a fight is perceived to be that easy, and I'm just saying easy because people are going to say, wow, he scored a 5th round TKO. That's an easy night at the office or whatever. But how did you assess the fight and your performance?
Look, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of mental battles I had to overcome from the fight. Just because people see a 5th round knockout, like you said, it's easy, but I've sparred this kid before, and I know how he was very skilled. I sparred him twice, and No, 3 times, and he actually put it on me one sparring. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a tougher fight than people thought, but
Yeah.
I know my abilities and I know what I can do, and that's what happened. I just caught him with a good shot, and yeah, that's all it takes in boxing.
I really liked your candor and your honesty, though, man. Because a lot of times, man, like guys don't want to cop to the fact that that they got a little touched up in a sparring session. You know what I mean? Like I appreciate that kind of honesty because obviously we hear about a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors. There's a lot of sparring stories, and I mean, guys that go around and brag about like what they've done to like top level elite fighters in sparring sessions or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that does like seem to be like one of those things.
Chuck that out. It's
absolutely.
It's not a good way to look at things. Sparring. You work on things. Yeah, you get hit with shots. I've got rocked in sparring by I come back and I give them a beating their life. It's just
right.
Like that. Just don't know. Sparring, and you just got to look at it that way, and just you got to really put all your effort into the ring and just don't worry about it. And a lot of guys that talk inspiring, I don't like it. It's a waste of my time too.
Now, what about fights on short notice? I just want to know, like, how short a notice that you'll take a fight on. Obviously, we saw it happen 2 times on that recent Saudi Arabia card. We saw Josh Padley step in against Shakur, and then we saw Martin Bakole step in against Joseph Parker on extremely short notice. And do you feel like there's a time frame like where if you take a fight too short, it's a mistake?
Well, I think so. I think if you take a fight on any short notice, it's a mistake. But it's life-changing money that brings you there. People grow up with when you start off, and people don't have that kind of money. And when people dangle that type of money in front of you, mate, people will do anything. So, look, you can look at it both ways. If you take a fight and you change your life, like the guy that Shakur beat.
Yeah, Josh Padley. Yeah.
My hat's off to him.
Yeah.
He can, all my respect goes to him. I think he got more traction than Shakur that fight.
Absolutely. And he held his own for 9 rounds. I mean, yeah, he probably got, I had him being shut out on the scorecards, but he was still there in front of him and gave a good account of himself.
At the end of the day, $500,000 US to a lot of people.
Sure.
That would save a lot of people's lives and confusions in their life. So fair play to him. And Bakole maybe wasn't training too, but
I mean, but he's another guy who's got first of all, getting back to the sparring stories, he's got a lot of those, like against top level guys or whatever. But he literally seemed like he just stepped off the plane or whatever. I mean, I know he was there to kind of like save the day, save the pay-per-view, still make Joseph Parker have a great fight with somebody. But do you think because he was perceived as kind of like for lack of a better word, a boogeyman in the heavyweight division, do you feel like when he comes in on short notice like that it kind of destroys that mystique, or do you just look at it like, short notice, he was out of shape, it is what it is, he's still a main player at heavyweight?
I think he's still a main player.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was short notice, and people take fights on short notice, and that's what happens. If you give him a full camp, maybe it changes.
Yeah.
He had Parker shook for a little bit. For a split second there, Parker was not shook, like rocked, but Parker thought he was going to be in for a big night because he forward and he realized. But then Joseph Parker caught him with that big shot, and that was it.
I'm super happy for him too. I love Joseph Parker, man. He's on a hell of a run right now too. Hell of a run.
I love the way he's turned his career around. That's a good person to look up to, because he was never a name in the heavyweight division.
I know.
And then out of nowhere, he's one of the biggest names in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I mean, he's beaten Zhang and Wilder and now Bakole, man. So he's really notched like some good names here in the last couple of years, man. I'm super happy for him, because you can genuinely tell that he's like one of the nice guys in the sport, though. Too, it's always nice and rewarding to see like good stuff come to people who are good ambassadors and good representation of the sport.
Yeah,
he's.
Dang it, I was gonna say as well, like if they offered me a fight with Shakur's not the biggest risk of a fight.
Right. Sure.
If they offered me a fight like that for that amount of money,
Yeah.
everyone would put their hand up. And
Yeah.
I would say that too.
Yeah.
Our power. And you saw that, it was just a body shot.
Right.
I think I can speak for 95% of the fighters in the world. If they offered them that fight, they'll take it in 3-4.
I mean, especially like he gets to leave his day job. I mean, 3 days before that, he's an electrician, and then suddenly now he's retired, from a day job, and he gets to focus full time on being a fighter again. And I think it's good for him too, because now, he's on Turkey Al Sheikh's radar. Like he's already been promised, to being on undercards in future events. So all the way around a smart business move, not just the money that he made for that fight, but even setting himself up for going forward.
Yes. You're 100%.
I mean, I think, and I'd read a story that like, he was the first guy that Turkey Al Sheikh went to because Turkey is a big fan of Mark Chamberlain, and Josh Padley had just beat Mark Chamberlain, man. So he was kind of on Turkey Al Sheikh's radar, like, okay, let's go get that kid that just did a number on the guy that I like,
Yeah.
Which is great when you see stuff like that happen, I mean.
Yeah, I like it.
I mean.
Like that.
And so, the 5th round TKO, do you consider yourself, because I feel like it's kind of like a lost art, man. Like, where do you stand on, I know all boxers are going to say it's an important component of the game, but then they get in there and they don't really hold true on that, man. But the most important part of your attack is what? Like, are you a committed guy going into the body? Is body punching important? Because I feel like that is kind of synonymous with, the Mexican style we were talking about earlier.
I think it's the most important aspect in the early rounds. Yes. You gotta learn the body and not get hit, but at the same time, your setups is the most important thing in boxing. How you land that punch. You can't just throw it for the sake of throwing it.
Right.
The setup is the most important thing in boxing. Well, not the most, one of the most important things.
And what do you think in all the years that you've been boxing, man? Like, what's the best lesson? Like life lesson that boxing is taught you?
There's lots of lessons. Maybe the best one is to don't look like you're better than anyone.
Yeah.
You don't need to treat anyone different because you're a fighter or you got this and that. I treat everyone the same, and to look at everyone the same. And I think that's what the biggest lesson that boxing's taught me is to just be humble and treat everyone how you want to be treated.
Well said, man. Listen, bro, I really appreciate you doing this, man, and staying on top of it, man. We were supposed to do it like last week. I'm finally glad we got a chance to actually like nail this down and do it, man. You're one of my favorite guys to watch right now. I tell people all the time when I have guests on here, I don't just pull their name out of a hat. They're usually on my radar for a reason. I admire and respect what they're doing or whatever. And like, you're one of those guys right now that I'm really enjoying watching the trajectory of your career.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to do it now. I was in a different mindset before the fight.
Absolutely. And I should have thought of that. I should have thought of that too. It's always nicer to get guys like, like after the fight, especially if it's that close, Yeah. But I really appreciate you doing it. I've got your contact information. Stay in touch, man. I'd definitely love to have you on again.
Thank you so much. And thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Good talking to you, my friend.
You too.
Yeah,
thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There he goes, folks. Cesar MATEO Tapia, up-and-coming middleweight, rising star. And I love to have my rising stars on here. Just ran his record March 12th, literally a day or two before the recording of this. I was actually surprised to have him on, that fast after a fight. But here he is, and just ran his record to 18-0, 18-0-1, 11 knockouts. Super happy to have him on, joining us all the way from Australia. So thanks again, MATEO Tapia, rising middleweight star. And thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys dug that episode. As I said earlier, like and follow Pod Scum on Facebook and like Pod Scum. I said it again. Well, that's my music podcast. Yes, do follow that. And there is a great playlist with people from the music and arts field on the YouTube channel. Do check that out. But that was a little Freudian slip with me. Make sure to follow Off the Couch Boxing on Facebook. But if you're on the YouTube channel, do check out Pod Scum as well. That's my other podcast. And there's 278 amazing episodes of that. If music, hard rock, metal is your thing, go check that out. But we're all here for Off the Couch Boxing. That's what I want you to check out on Facebook. Hit me up. Give me some suggestions. Give me some feedback. Who you like, who you don't like, who you'd like to see me run down. I'll do my best to get them on. And I'm always keeping you guys in the loop with what's going on in the boxing world. That won't change. All your news, all your updates, I'm sharing it with you on there. So stay tapped in on Facebook and like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this channel to also stay tapped in with the undefeated heavyweight champion of boxing podcast, bar none. And again, let me thank MATEO TAPIA for joining us from Australia. And let me remind you that you also can be a champion. You can do it. You got to stay tapped in with Off the Couch Boxing, and you got to continue to roll with the champs. Peace.